right, I'll wait for some people to get in here, but let's do it. Welcome back to another episode of the Miami Collins Show, live presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Jaden Gonzalez. Happy Thursday, everyone. Football is back. Let's say that the combine is today, and we can finally start getting back into the football groove, that spirit after about 2.5 weeks of no football, no nothing to talk about. We can finally talk about some things because the combine is going on right now. Edge rushers and linebackers are currently doing drills at the moment. Obviously, I was just watching. No Bain, no Mesidor in terms of doing the drills. Wesley Bissate will be doing drills later today. Yeah, it's nice to have football back. It's nice to have some things going on. It's nice to talk football. I want to hear what you guys got to say because the offseason is starting to pick up a little more steam. You got spring practice coming up, spring game, all that stuff is coming up in the near future. But right now, combine, we can talk draft, we can talk all the things about the guys that made this Miami team who they were. And I'm very excited to talk about it. I have the call-in show in the chat, the link. As always, you put the link in your web browser, and whatever you guys want to say, whatever you guys want to talk about, I'm here for. That's what I'm here for. But if no one comments, if no one, calls in, no issue. We'll go back to, I'll bring up some talking points, and we'll see if that, that changes anything. But I do want to bring up right away the combine because I think that's the big thing on everyone's mind right now, specifically Bain and Mesidor. And I'd say that only for the fact that Bain's arm length is obviously back in discussion again. His measurables came out. His arm length is 30 and 7/8 inches, which is like apparently the lowest in years. I don't care. Just gonna say it. I don't care. Maybe it's my bias. It is my bias. I've watched him now for 3 years inside of a press box. I've watched him at countless times playing ball. Watch the tape. Watch the film. He's been doubted at every single point in his career. Watch the film. Watch the tape. You don't need to say, you can't just look at his arm length to say this guy's a bust. If you want to go with that, that's your prerogative. Go for it. I'm going to look at the guy that led the best defensive line in the country, was incredible at setting the edge, was an incredible edge threat in general, great run defender. When in whatever that he had to do, he was an elite. He countless pressures. He's pressure percentage one of the best in college football, one of the highest rated PFF players of all time, ACC Defensive Player of the Year, 9.5 sacks, led the team in the playoff. There's the stats are there, the game footage is there. Watching him play was there. He did it against some of the best offensive lines in the country, was dominant at all facets of the game, allowed for guys like Mesidor, who's also in the draft, and all these other guys to kind of come through because he would draw double teams, he would draw pressures, he would draw all these things. And when I watch Ruben Bain play, I watch a guy that's a top 5 pick. That's the way that I see him. Obviously I'm not I'm not the scouts, I'm not the defensive coordinators, I'm not the guys in the NFL. But I've watched Ruben Bain quite a bit over the last 3 years, amongst more than kind of, a lot of people. Watch the tape, watch the film. The guy's a game wrecker. The guy is one of the best edge rushers in college football. If he slips, whoever takes him is lucky to get, in my opinion, one of the best players in the country. And I think the whole arm length discussion is such a joke. I think it's such a dumb thing to talk about when you have the counting stuff and the counting numbers that are right there. I think there was an example as well that some teams are measuring the arm length differently. Like that certain teams, measured him and they said he had 32 inches, whatever. It does not matter. We're talking arm length here for a guy who is so good at as being a pass rusher, has great bend, is great on the outside, setting the edge. It's not like a severe thing. And I do want to almost fault Will Campbell when, how poorly he played in the Super Bowl has kind of re-brought up this discussion that your arm length matters. Arm length is the new hands. When they talk about quarterbacks, they're like, well, how big are his hands? The same debate is being talked about among edge rushers or offensive linemen. How big are their arms? What's their arm length look like? And I think it's stupid. I think it's a dumb debate to talk about especially when you watch the film. And Will Campbell and his performance in the Super Bowl has kind of elevated that, which I'll say that sucks. Let's say that. But he's not doing any drills. I know that he's not in the 40s, not doing any of the. He just did his measures, which or whatever. He's still, according to FanDuel, I believe he is the third highest odds to go number 2, which would be to the New York Jets, my New York Jets, at plus 450. And he has the second highest odds of being the number 2 overall pick, tied with David Bailey and Arvell Reese, two other really incredible players. So I loved watching Bane. I think Bane, Bane being at the combine, just talking with media, getting to know these coaches is big. A spot I like him with is Tennessee, with getting to pair up with Jeffrey Simmons, being reunited with Cam, a really cool defense coordinator or defensive minded coach, or Robert Salah. I like that fit for him. I'm not going to wish anyone on the New York Jets, so I will never say that. But I'm excited to see where he goes. And the other guy, obviously, is Akeem Mesidor. Mezzi has been rumored for a lot of different things and a lot of different reasons. His playoff run and his entire season as a whole has really given him a lot of steam and momentum to be a late first round pick, even as high as I saw someone say in the top 15. I think he'll probably be a late first round pick. But when watching Hakeem play, it seemed like he was a compliment to Bane. If Bane was going to be, getting the pressures, if he was going to draw one, Mezzi was going to be one-on-one. He was going to do a damn good job because he was a grown-ass man playing against, college kids. 24 years old, was very, very good at what he did. He was great. He had 12 and a half sacks, third in college football. The sack production was there. The numbers were there. He was very good in the run defense. I thought he was clutch. He made a lot of key plays. I mean, when you even think about the 2025 Miami Hurricanes, the main person you talk about is that defensive line, spearheaded by the two of them, Mezzi and Bane. There's so many different plays you look at and you're like, well, when you watch like the Indiana game, you have both of them coming off the edge one-on-one, destroying them. You have the Notre Dame game, which essentially closed it out, where both of them beat the Notre Dame guys and Mezzi gets a sack. The Ohio State game, it felt like Mezzi was the guy that was everywhere, finishing the plays and doing the rest, while Bane was kind of in the middle of the trenches doing all the tough work. They complemented each other really well, and they played so well together. Obviously, Mesidor's got a lot more concerns, I'd say. His age, he's 24, and his injury history, I believe he's had at least one severe injury, like super serious injury, I think either knee or foot. So that's could be a drawback as well. I do think he's at least, at the very worst, he's a second round pick. I think he's going to be very good in the league. I think he'll be a quality edge rusher in the league. But having those two guys in the combine, it's important that these guys continue to show out in the NFL for Miami and their resume. Jason Taylor already speaks for himself as one of the best defensive line coaches in the country. Miami's defensive line the last 2 years has been unbelievable, fantastic. Nothing more you could say about how awesome they've been. And the more that they look good, the better it looks for the future, and the future guys that want to come to Miami, or the way that you recruit to Miami is, hey, we brought in we had Akeem Mesidor, we had Ruben Bane, and in years past we had, we could even look back a lot longer when we had, Gregory Rousseau or other guys of that nature. We're a factory of producing elite level defensive linemen, and Ruben Bane and Mesidor kind of are the forefront of the new era of that, of that group, which is cool. It's pretty cool to have. I'm very, rooting for every Hurricane in this class. Obviously, Wes is the last guy. Obviously, his age is there. I don't know much about what they're going to say about Wes. He hasn't really measured in either, so there's not, he's not also projected to be a top 3 round pick. Obviously, Bane and Mesidor are the two guys to talk about and to look out for during combine. From what I know, just to keep track, if anyone wants to keep track of the guys that are competing, tomorrow is Keontae Scott, Jacoby Thomas, DBs and tight ends. Saturday is Carson Beck and CJ Daniels, which is quarterback, wide receiver, running back. And then day 4, one of some of the most amount of Hurricanes, CC, Markel, Inez, all for the offensive linemen. So if anyone cares, anyone wants to see them compete, see what they look like, all of them projected to be drafted in some capacity, root for them, see what they look like. There's a lot of talk about them. You guys, like us, or like me, have seen what these guys have looked like over the last few years. You guys including me, know more than anything about the way these guys have played, and you can give insight to whoever they get drafted to and whatnot. But I don't know. I'm a big nerd in the combine. I love looking at that stuff and kind of seeing it all. Um, also, I guess probably that's it when we talk about the combine because again it's day one, it's early, not a whole lot to talk about. We can talk about Miami's new running back coach, Fabian Upshaw, the new running back coach, replacing Matt Merritt. Matt Merritt, who went to the Arizona Cardinals. Some background on Upshaw. He was a former college quarterback at FIU and Georgia Southern. When he was at FIU, I believe he signed when Cristobal was still the head coach of FIU. He then turned to coaching, I believe, in 2021, running backs coach for Georgia Southern. I think the year after was the assistant quarterback coach for Tulane. After that, he spent 3 years in Denver as I believe, the quality control assistant, heavily working with the running back group. So over the last couple of years, that's been Javonte Williams, RJ Harvey, J.K. Dobbins, Jaleel McLaughlin, some really cool, some very good players. I imagine he has a connection with Cristobal. He has a connection with the staff. I'm excited to see what he looks like. I can't necessarily speak on what he can and what he won't bring, but I think it's a good move. I can't say any, here or there on that. You get a guy from the NFL that had he was interviewing, I believe, for the wide receivers coach for the Broncos and was also the running backs coach in the Senior Bowl. So a guy with connections, a guy that is well liked around either the Broncos org or around the league. I think it's nice to have an NFL guy that is, ready to, going to college as an RB coach. I think it's a pretty good move for Miami to have. That's an NFL guy. So yeah, I like that a lot. Again, I'll post the link in the comments. Click on the browser, whatever. Same old deal as we've been doing. Some couple small things, some cleanup, some number changes as we've seen over the last couple weeks with some guys going in and out. Some of the returners have been able to change their number. Malachi Tony, I believe, is now going to be number 1, which points to Darian Mensah getting his Duke number, which was 10. Gerard Pringle and Bryce Fitzgerald both posted new jersey numbers, what it looks like. Pringle taking 0, which was formerly JoJo, and then I forgot who it was. I'll look that one up. What's a good question? Who was 0 for? Oh, Keelan. And then Bryce Fitzgerald taking 3, which would have been from Akeem Mesidor. So it's just some other things to talk about. Yeah, as much as it's nice that football is back, there's not a whole lot to talk about still, especially within the Hurricanes. So it's nice to talk combine and whatnot as we get closer and closer. But when spring practice comes, as we're getting closer to that, here at the Voice of College Football, especially Miami, we'll have a lot of coverage. Shay and I both work for are heavily involved within student media, sports media. We will be at a lot of the media days. We'll be at a lot of the spring practices. We interviewing a lot of the guys, watching a lot of what we're allowed to see, even though it's not a whole lot. But we'll be giving you guys as much notes and information as possible whenever we can. So yeah. But I do want to talk about, because I did this last week, because since no one else was kind of talking, positions, kind of position talk, whatever. I started with running backs last week, a position that had no change at all. If anything, it was just a couple additions within recruits. So the next one I want to talk about is the defensive back room, because another position with very few changes, a lot of additions, a lot to talk about. So I think that's kind of where I'll shift to, following kind of the things that we had talked about before. Let's start with the DB room. There's a lot of continuity that they're bringing in. I know they're losing DB coach Zach Etheridge, but it's still led by defensive coordinator Corey Heatherman. In terms of guys that are leaving, the guys I just mentioned, Jacoby Thomas, Keontae Scott, 2 guys who were incredible and were big pieces that you are going to be losing. Keontae Scott going down with injury, coming back, playing in the playoffs and being, in my opinion, the best defensive player during that playoff run. That's how pivotal he was. And it's a tough loss. It's a hole that you're going to have to fix or have to replace in some capacity. When you look at Keontae, you think of The pick six against Ohio State, which was one of the best plays in Miami Hurricanes history, easily, without a doubt. Game-changing play. He had a forced fumble against A&M, the pick six against Ohio State, a sack against A&M. He flies around the field. He would get him as a nickel blitzer was incredible. As a nickel corner, he was great tackler, great in open space. He was so good at, I felt like, at everything. He felt like it was a leader within that locker room. Go be great, Zero was incredible for them. I mean, so incredibly blessed to watch Keontae Scott that year. And then Jacoby Thompson as well, violent, big hitter. The stuff that he brought from Tennessee to Tennessee to Miami was huge. It was noticeable. He was violent. He made a lot of nice plays. The interceptions he had, I think he had at least one pick six. I know the one against NC State he had. He was used sometimes as a nickel blitzer, but he was really a coverage guy that made some big hits, big tackles. I loved watching him in open space. He really fit that ESV mentality of just swarming and having complete violence no matter what. He had some very 2001 Miami Hurricane, like that kind of era, the 80s and that 80s kind of era of Miami Hurricanes football. He kind of brought that kind of swagger with him, and I'm very appreciative of what he brought. I think he did a lot of the Ray Lewis celebrations at times. Like that's kind of what I saw of him. And yeah, I loved watching Jacoby play. Great player. Hopefully he succeeds somewhere in the league in some capacity. But you got to find holes. You got to find ways to replace those guys. But in terms of returners, we have OJ Frederick, Xavier Lucas, Damari Brown, Ethan O'Connor. The four corners are all returning, which is huge. Again, you lose Keontae, but OJ Frederick, guy who's projected first round pick currently right now in some mock drafts for next year's draft. He kind of almost like in the way that teams looked at Sauce Gardner. I'm not even going to say no, like the way that teams look at certain guys where you're afraid to throw the ball at him because that's how dominant he is, where he's putting guys on an island. He's shutting off half the field. He was doing that a lot during the entire season. Felt that way he only had 19 total tackles, which speaks to teams just not throwing at him. No interceptions because, again, felt like teams weren't throwing at him. Ton of pass breakups, made a lot of really nice plays. I felt like I audibly said a lot of times when the ball was targeted to him, that was a really nice rep from OJ Frederick. He played fantastic in the national championship game against Indiana. I thought he was so good in all different facets. He's the CB1. He'll be guarding a lot of the best corners in college football, the best receivers in college football. Excited to see what he can do. Xavier Lucas had a good year one after being at Wisconsin for his first year. Good year one. Only had one interception, I believe. Was mainly an outside corner. A couple hiccups here and there, but like I remember week one. He had a couple. I don't know if it was a whole team or certain issues here and there. But I thought he had a good year. I thought he was fine. Obviously the biggest thing from him was when he got the targeting call in the Fiesta Bowl, which I'm not going to say anything about. That was probably a soft call. But I appreciated what he did during that year for Miami. And I expect that development to be even better, hopefully as a good CB2. When he went down, though, losing him for that second half against Ole Miss and the first half against Indiana, massive. They had to play Jabari Antoine. Antoine was very young, unproven, not a lot to like, and it showed. Ole Miss's offense was rolling in that third and fourth quarter with Lucas off the field. It hurt. You could definitely see his presence was needed. His presence was felt. You're going to need him as likely your CB2. You have Damari Brown, who I love. Damari. His injury concerns have become something to be on the lookout for. Sophomore year, he got hurt, which was 2024. 2025, misses the entire playoff because of injury, was game times, like thought he was going to come back. He never did. I obviously didn't know the severity of his injury, so I can't speak on that, but I can say that when he is healthy, though, he's been very, very good, especially as a man corner. His size is there. He can make some nice plays, and he's a huge depth piece in the event that he can play. When you were without him and Xavier Lucas for essentially for the Ole Miss second half, and then the first half against Indiana, it hurt, and you could definitely tell it hurt because it was a lot of Frederic, Lucas, and then Ethan O'Connor, who I'll mention in a sec. Damari's huge. I think he's an important guy that you need. He might be your nickel guy because he's lined up there sometimes. I think he's a key player that when he's healthy, he can be, up there again with one of the more dominant cornerbacks for the team. And then there's Ethan O'Connor, who got slandered quite a bit during the playoff. I kind of think it's unwarranted because I think he's a good corner. I think he's a good depth corner. I think if he were to be the CB4, it's a very good spot for him. Look, when he was a CB2 or CB3 in against Indiana, it showed some of the back shoulder throws of Charlie Becker were backbreakers. Some of the plays, like he got mossed a couple times. Like he struggled in the Indiana game. I agree. But overall, if you were to encapsulate his entire season, to say he was really that bad all year long, I disagree with that take. I do expect bigger things from him next year in year 3. He's still a key depth and an important piece to the defensive back room. That is important, in my opinion, at least. And then, I mean, you can mention Jabari Antoine. Didn't play a lot year 1 other than the Ole Miss and Indiana game. Obviously up and down as a true freshman. We'll get more reps. I want to see what he looks like year 2. I don't know how much he'll play considering the 4 guys in front of him and also the true freshman coming in, which I think is one of the sneaky underrated parts of Miami's class coming in. And then the safeties. So in terms of returners, you're bringing back Zachariah Poyser and Bryce Fitzgerald. I thought Poyser was a little up and down. Some things like he had a sack, he had a forced fumble. He's a big hitter. He can be decent in the zone. I will say one thing that immediately pops in my mind: the Kewan Lacy touchdown run against Ole Miss in the first half. I'm pretty sure it was Poyser who had the poor angle of pursuit, something like that. Like him in the run isn't the best, but as a zone guy, he had no interceptions either. He was a good coverage guy. He can make big hits. He was used a couple times as a to get as like a DB blitzer, which Heatherman loves to do, which I love. I would say I need to see more from him. They had a lot of Jacoby, so it was a lot of rotation between the safeties. They didn't have 3 playing. But I do expect more from him for year 2, assuming he will take a starter role. And then obviously Bryce Fitzgerald took the team by storm. And year 2, I'm expecting an incredible year from him. Had a fantastic year 1. 6 interceptions. I believe he led college football with that stat. The 2 interceptions against A&M in the first playoff game were massive. Obviously, the second one being the game changer, the decider, the one that ended the game. And his first one, I believe, was, it was like stuff like that is what he's important for. His picks are important. The FSU game, I remember he had a huge pick that turned into a Malachi Tony touchdown right after. He has been very good. He also was using a nickel blitzer when Keontae went down. I think he's better in the back, being about like a boundary safety, because I think him getting interceptions, being a ball hawk, that's what he's good at doing. I think he should stick at it. He's a good he's a good hitter, makes the right reads, makes the right tackles, does what he needs to do. I appreciate what he does. I'm expecting big things from year 2. All I can say. The only other guy I can mention, Dylan Day. And then transfers, you got 2 of them. Omar Thornton, the DB from BC, who I've talked about quite a bit since he's come over. Guy I'm super high on. He fits everything that I think Miami wants in a guy. And a guy that is versatile, can make big hits, can fit that ESV mentality, can he wants to make big plays and get big tackles, be a massive hitter, be used in a safety blitz role or a DB blitz role, whatever that may be. That's his role. He had 82 tackles, 2 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, and an interception at BC. He flew around the field. It's so reminiscent, I would say, of the way that it's almost like a mix of the way that Keontae Scott or Jacoby Thomas played. Being a massive hitter, getting forced fumbles, sacking guys, and having a lot of open space tackles. That's a guy I like to see take that versatile role. I think you're going to see a lot of him and talk a lot about him. I love him. I love his style of play. I love what he can bring. He's a guy to watch, obviously. I think I'm willing to say he'll be the MVP of that DB room, that whole, cornerback safety room. I'm willing to say that he might be that big of a piece that he could be kind of the MVP of that room, apart from, Bryce. That's how confident I feel in him. I think he's a stud. I'm excited to watch him play for Miami. And the other guy being Conrad Hussey, who I think is just used for depth. He's dismissed to FSU. He went to Oregon State, had a fine year at Oregon State. Like, he's just another depth piece that you have, whatever. And then in terms of the freshmen, which I have some, things from him that I saw, done some research on. You have from the main guys I want to hit on are start with safety, JJ Dunningham, the 4-star DB from Manhattan, Kansas, 6'2", 185, has impressive play speed. He has the mold of boundary corner, could play boundary safety, but he could play corner. I think he's a good boundary guy. Doesn't have to get a lot of takeaways, but I think he's got impressive ball skills. He also played receiver in high school. That size at 6'2" is big. I think he's going to be a versatile guy that they could use. I don't know exactly how many of these guys will get, minutes or playing time right away, but it's something to look at. Depth piece, whatever. Second guy, Camden Portis, the cornerback, the son of Clinton Portis, obviously a Miami legend, 5'11", 165, 4-star corner from Charlotte. High football IQ, tons of athleticism, tons of physicality, can be a slot defender, which looks like his ceiling, which I would love because Miami could use a slot defender. Has experience in man and zone, has played at the first two. I think he understands how to play and be a corner. He has obviously the experience with his dad. He is young. He's coming to Miami before he's 17. Before he turns 18. I think he's going to be a nice player that can fit in that rotation as he continues at Miami. And the last guy, Jalen Seatbelt Waters, the 4-star from Sefter, Florida, 6'1", 180. I believe he took Miami over Auburn and Bama's UF specifically, and a bunch of other schools. I like him a lot. He's more of a man-to-man corner. Big guy in pressing. I mean, he's nicknamed Seatbelt for a reason. He's big on PBUs. He's a guy that reminds me similar to the way that OJ plays with his size. Definitely can cover ground and lean on safeties. That to me, again, similar to the way that he's big on press. He's a guy that you're going to want one-on-one man coverage. I like that a lot. I don't know how much any of these guys are going to play, considering how much depth I think and experience there is in that cornerback room. OJ, Lucas, and Damari all played, are all going to play multiple years now at Miami. Ethan O'Connor as well. And then even a guy like Antoine and wherever they put Omar Thornton. So it's an interesting thing to look at or to talk about. There's a lot of different moving parts to that defensive back room. I don't know. There's a lot to be looking at for that room in the future. A lot to be excited about. In terms of concerns, I'm excited. I'm more curious about who they bring in as the DB coach. I know there were rumors about Pat Surtain. Those rumors, I mean, they said there was no truth to that at the moment. Who knows? I'll wait and see when that comes out, and we'll talk about it on this show. We'll see. I'm excited for it. I'm excited for what Miami will bring in that DB room. Losing Thomas and Scott hurts, but I think having a lot of continuity helps. Having guys that were part of the rebuild of that defensive back room in a 1-year span. To the 2024 team had a terrible DB room with Damari and OJ, and in 1 year they come back, and now they looking like one of the better DB rooms in the country. A defense spearheaded by Heatherman that looks to take flight and be another really solid room. The nickel blitzes, the DB blitzes. I love the way that they do it. They love playing a lot of defensive backs at a time. Expect that to not change. Expect Omar Thornton to take over a lot of roles, expect a lot of versatility from some of these guys and to play different kind of roles and do different things. But you have a guy like, that Bryce Fitzgerald is going to be a ball hawk for you. You have a guy like OJ Frederick, who's going to be a man-to-man press guy that is not going to get a lot of targets towards him. And you're going to get another year of Xavier Lucas, Damari Brown, Ethan O'Connor. And then you have a really nice incoming class that might step up, and who knows what can come from that. I'm excited for that. Excited to see what the team looks like. And yeah, considering considering obviously the lack of everything, I'm okay to end it here. I appreciate anyone who did tune in. I know we're still during doing a lull during the off season and whatnot, but I do appreciate anyone who did turn in. I'm very, very grateful for you all. Have a great rest of your Thursday night. Watch the rest of the combine. Watch Wes compete. I think he's coming up soon. Go Canes as always. I should be back on Monday with Shay for the primetime show and on Thursday for the call-in show. I appreciate you guys, anyone who came in. I will see you guys next week. Peace.